All right, it's 6 p.m. If you again will stand with me. For those of you that were not here, we're going to do this again. We're going to open with a prayer, and then we'll have a pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and all your many blessings. And dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to be at this court. We pray, dear Heavenly Father, the decisions we make today will be for the best interests of the people of this county. Dear Heavenly Father, we pray for our state government. We pray for our federal government. We pray that they might always rule in a way that we may always be able to worship Thee in freedom and have these free public meetings, dear Heavenly Father, for the people to be here. Be for our men and women that are overseas, dear Heavenly Father, and help bring them home safely. And dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to be with Ray Wentez's family as he was lost this past week. And we ask you to be with them and comfort them and help them through these trying times. And dear Heavenly Father, we know that we will have people traveling and going to see their families and families coming to see them. We ask you to be with them as they take them safely to their destination and bring them home back safe. Just always be with us, guide us, and protect us. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Let's do our pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christy, is that microphone turned on? I don't think I turned it on. That one as well as the one on the podium. Okay, for those of you that just joined us, we just completed a public hearing related to a particular item, and we're ready to begin our regularly scheduled second meeting of the month. It is December 23rd, 2013, a little bit after 6 o'clock, and I will first invite public comments or requests for information on non-agenda items in accordance with Section 551.042 of the Open Meetings Act. Anyone have anything that they would like to address the court about? All right. Item number 2, consider and possibly approve minutes from our December 9th regular meeting of Commissioners Court.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion. Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hockaday to approve those minutes.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fields. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And there are none. Would you check? Let's see if I'm going to check in just a minute. I have yet to receive a status report on our pass-through project. I was told I'd have one by 6. I'm going to double check my email. I just checked it there, but I'm going to take a break here in a few more minutes and see if it has come through. But I'm going to skip on to item number 4. And item number 4 is to consider and possibly approve a plan to remodel and adjust the rent on the Riddle Street building on behalf of our current tenant, Workforce Solutions of Northeast Texas. And we have with us tonight Chris, Randy, I saw you. I'm going to first get started here with, tell you what, Randy, if you'll come up and you may come back again for a second time, but just kind of tell us what's going on over there, kind of bring the audience up to date on what's going on with that building and kind of where you have come from this being a temporary quarters to what is looking like maybe a long-term location for you, and give them a little history about the building there on Ferguson and how we've gotten to where we are right now and what it is that you'd like for us to do.
Well, good evening.
And maybe pull that mic out of its sleeve there and, yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
See, is it on?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Randy Reed. I'm currently the Interim Executive Director of Workforce Solutions, which is the Workforce Development Board for Northeast Texas. We serve the 9 counties up here in this part of the state. As many of you might be aware, we had a workforce center over on Ferguson Street for many years in this community. And last July, we had a flooding situation over there, which caused the building to be inhabitable. It's a state-owned building, And in consultation with the state, they determined that the repairs that were necessary would exceed what we were able to pay for staying in that facility. So we came to the county after surveying commercial property that was available and inquired about the possibility of some help in helping us locate a facility, and that led to us relocating to the Riddle Street facility that we currently are operating in today. And I have to tell you that the cooperation that we got in part of that move was beneficial in helping us to not really be down for any length of time in terms of being able to provide service to the people of this community in this county. So we've operated over there for about 4 months now. And during this period of time, we've had discussions with your county judge about extending the lease on a long-term basis with the agreement that certain upgrades and modifications to that facility would be made, some of which are required by us being a state-funded agency that requires us to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act requirement, for instance. As part of those discussions, we've talked about price range for some of the things that need to be done, and as a result of that, we have kind of framed a price that we could afford, which would be recovered through the lease cost going forward. We're temporarily leasing on a short-term, temporary basis with the hopes of reaching some accommodation and agreement upon the part of the commissioners to allow us to use that facility on a longer-term basis to continue to provide the kind of services we do to this community and county.
Good. Okay, thank you, Randy. So what I have done is I have worked together with Chris Basham, who provides architectural services for us, not only on this building, but on some other buildings, and I've also discussed the matter with Carl Johnson. And we have talked, I first proposed a chart to Randy that would give him an idea of, for each dollar that was spent on the remodel of that building, what he could expect in the way of rent increase in that building. They're currently paying $1,500 a month. We've put together a projection of different levels, and that went all the way from spending no money on a remodel up to spending $150,000 on a remodel, which exceeded the projected cost of their wish list, as it were. And that $150,000 expenditure, were we to spend that much to remodel that building, would have resulted in a $3,900 new monthly lease, as opposed to the current $1,500. I have got, do each of you have a copy of this? Yeah, I have got a few copies of these if anybody would like to see this. This will kind of give you an idea of the items that are being talked about as far as what's going to be included in that remodel. And so let me, Lou, would you take this when you get you a picture and just hand those out? Anybody that would like to have that, I'll kind of explain what all's there, but if you wanted to see it in print. Some of the things that are that were proposed by Workforce Solutions that they would like to have done, I'll just hit some of the high points. Replace the ceiling tile throughout the facility, remove the vault door. There's an old safe there with a huge vault door. Replace that and frame it in with a new wooden door. Repaint the exterior of the building, paint the interior, new carpet, new tile, a rear hallway door to the break room, asphalt parking enlarged from the current setup to one that would include parking for 35 vehicles. Rework the front entry door clearances and thresholds, replace all door hardware with levers, and reconfigure the restrooms so that they would be ADA compliance for folks with disabilities. And Chris put together some cost projections on all of these, and the initial wish list came up to about $130,000 worth of things that were requested. Randy and I got together, and it looks like there are certain things that he's either changed his mind on or can be done a little bit cheaper than we thought, or maybe just don't have to be done. They're not that important to result in that much of a rent increase. At this time, I'd like to ask Chris Basham to come up to the podium, and Chris, kind of give us your view on this situation and how you would propose that we proceed.
Took the liberty of taking $130,000 starting point, and after we've gone through all the changes and stuff, have revised that sheet, so it's that same line item. But we're looking at about $90,000, and just kind of run through some of the things that changed after what the judge said was, the water fountains, we're not going to replace the water fountains, we're going to take them out. It's cheaper to take them out and let them provide water service versus trying to replace the water fountains with ADA accessible, which is a 2-layer, and running more water. It's perfectly legal to just provide a water supply, and they use the water that way. We're going to widen the door in the training room. What they really just need is a door. There's a frame here, there's a door missing, so we just put a door in. So that's about a third of the cost of trying to cut in a new door.
Chris, pull that mic a little closer to you. Not that they can't hear you, I just want to make sure we get it on the recording.
All right. We've deleted the painting of the exterior of the building. They did some washing of it, and it cleaned it up quite a bit, so we deleted that. The interior painting is still there. We have split instead of putting new carpet throughout the whole building, we split it between tile and carpet, so the public areas where there's a lot of traffic will go to a vinyl tile, which is less expensive, and then just do carpet in the offices. There was a front desk set up that's basically they're going to replace it with their own furniture instead of us building something in. The two biggest items that were incorporated in it was the parking lot. There's not very much parking there right now. There's maybe parking for 8 or 9 cars. They'd requested 30 to 35, so we have a layout in that package there that gets to 30 cars without breaking out the ground around the side of the building. So we can actually reuse the existing parking lot for half of the parking. The way it's drained, we'll just run the drainage with surface drainage, and it'll run right down the middle of the parking lot out of the way the cars are parking. So we can get 30 cars in with that layout that's in the package there. The levers on the doors are just for handicap accessible. You can't have round doorknobs, you have levers. So we're putting levers in. There's only, some of them are already there, we found out, so there's 10 or 12 of them that still need to be replaced. And then the bathrooms are not quite ADA compliant. There's 4 restrooms in the facilities. 2 of them have to be ADA compliant. So we're going to have to do some modifications. So we've since been over and remeasured, and we can really cut that cost way down too by taking out, there's a partition in there that actually violates the turning circles that you're required to have for ADA. So we'll take those out. You have to be able to get a wheelchair underneath the sink, and the vanity is too low, so we figured out a way we can just cut it out. So taking it out, we can cut part of it out, finish it off, and it'll suffice and do that. So we've got it around $94,000 is what it's adding up to now, and that's just an estimate. What we will do is we'll start seeking prices. We've already started getting prices on carpet and vinyl tile. And the prices that we're getting are less than what we estimated by a few $1,000s. So what we're proposing to do is basically look at the budget of $90,000, $94,000, and let us work within that to get everything that's on this list. We've got a prioritized list of what they want to get, and we start with the highest priority and work it down until we ran out of money. What I'm recommending that we do for the county is, you've seen these numbers and you've got the revised numbers on there, is allow us to basically be your agent and go solicit prices from folks in the county. We're trying to do a local vendor preference. I do a lot of work for the federal government, and they do preferences for like Hub Zone and a woman-owned business and those kind of things. And the way they do it is they basically give them a little bit of a break on the price so that they stay local. And what I'm recommending here is like a 10%. So if somebody from outside of Titus County wanted to bid on it, they can still bid on it. So you still get prices. But if a local guy bids on it, he gets a 10% break when you start comparing prices. So it looks like you'd be paying 10% more, but what really happens is because they're local in the county, they end up spending that money right back in the county. So it actually pays back to the county to do that kind of thing. That's what it's using the model that the federal government uses. What I would recommend is that we work directly with, if y'all are okay with these prices and the approach, work directly with county purchasing and bring them the bids that we get. We'd actually collect bids and stuff so you'd actually see what they were and give you a report on it so you'd know that we were staying under the budget on these things. It'd make the thing go a lot quicker and faster. If there's any savings on the budgets, we just give it back to the county, or you spend it on the building on something else. There's just a lump sum fee for managing the process, and I would basically hire somebody to do that. I won't be doing that myself. I'll oversee them managing it. Normally, that construction administration price is 10 to 15% of the construction cost. We can keep it around 10, 11%, 12%. And that'd just be the lump sum cost, and their purpose of that job is to make sure they get bids, they get the best price, they present them back to you guys, and they keep it under budget, and they keep it on schedule. And what we're recommending right now, we'll work with Randy Reed and his folks over there as far as the scheduling of it, because we want to maintain operations, but 4 to 6 weeks of time, and being able to work in the evenings and the weekends to get the things in the public areas. One of the other things that we had discussed was, as far as keeping the prices down, is on the biggest line item is the parking lot. Is maybe being able to tap the county resources to come in and do the grading work and get the sub-base in, and then come back and have a contractor come back and asphalt it. That's just a matter of how do you want to spend the money. Do you want to pay a contractor to do that, or do you want to save some of the county money, do it with your resources, and then finish it out with a contractor? But there's a revised cost list in here along the items. There's a floor plan of the building that kind of shows where the project, where the carpet, where the tile is, where the doors are, and the restrooms. And then the last sheet is a layout for the parking lot. It gets 30 cars in there.
And you could go in, you could make that parking lot L-shaped if Workforce decided they still needed some more. You've still got a little bit there under the trees at the south end of that building where you could have even more parking.
Right.
But that pretty well eliminates the front grassy area in front of the building, and that maxes out that space between the street and the front of the building to give you parking on 2 sides rather than the existing 1 side.
Correct. We also moved the parking lot right now. When you pull in there, you're right on the edge of the road. I mean, your wheels will hit the curb and your bumper is actually in the road. So I've moved that edge back, I'm not demolishing anything, we'll just move it back 5 feet, put a curb in, and then make a zero-scape, as they call it, the rock, and just fill that in so it's actually got a space there so when your bumper doesn't overlay into the road like it would now. If I back my truck in there, my truck tailgate would be out in the back of the road in its current situation. But
So
there's parallel parking along there right now.
You'll be able to continue to park cars there along the curb in the street. Okay.
That thing is always needed to be lowered, the parking lot.
Right now, it slopes from the road toward the building, and I think with the grading, we can basically come from the building back down to the parking lot. It actually slopes down and it comes back up. And then there was also the grading right up against the building right now actually slopes back into the building. So we're actually draining into the entryway. And that'll all be fixed. We got to raise the entryway for ADA compliance also. It's not a level surface actually coming into the building. So we would actually float that entryway, which actually will raise it about 1 inch. And that further solves the problem of water coming in there too.
Okay.
Is this rent per month?
Yes. Currently, that rent is $1,500 a month, and you'll note there from your chart that I'm proposing that rent increase to $2,400 a month with no expenses being made on the building. So that would be our starting point, and then from there you can see for each $5,000 results in a $50 a month increase. When Randy and I looked at this, he really felt like $3,300 a month was the rent factor that he was comfortable with, which associated with a $90,000 remodel, and so that's why Chris keeps referring to this $90,000 budget. And if we're able to come in under that, we can either use that to do some more things that they would like to have but didn't think they could, or it'll just reduce their rent another 50 or 100, whatever.
So at 3,300, when we finish this, is that the price? Is it going to be, or is it going to be
Well, if you'll look at this chart here, what I'm proposing, if we spent $90,000 of the county money to remodel that building, then the rent would go up to $3,300 a month.
Right, okay. I don't see that.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I got you.
Well, it's a 3-year with, we're going to propose some options on beyond that.
We have, it's 3 years, 36 months, so 90,000 is just about 3,000 a month addition to the 24.
That's right. It's not going to pay for itself if they only stay there 3 years. Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, you've already committed to the following upgrades to that building: approximately $20,000 to bring high-speed fiber optic into the building, and about $9,000 to increase the data capability and electrical capability within that building. $29,000 commitment on your part, and I know that you can't promise me with any certainty how long you might be there, because we do know, and I must stress this, that if for any reason you were unable to get funding, or your funding dropped by more than 25%, that you would have an immediate ability to exit the lease without penalty. So we are keeping, I want you to keep that under consideration, that at any time their funding was dropped, that they could no longer be a tenant, and we would have a building that we spent $90,000 on, and we've lost our tenant. Now, I feel like every dollar that we're spending on this building dramatically improves this building and makes it more desirable for the next tenant, especially in view of the fact they spent $29,000 on making significant improvements like fiber optic cable and improving the electrical and data capability within that building. So we will end up with a building that is much better than it is right now, but it's always, it's always something that a landlord has to consider. If I have a piece of rent property, I've got to decide if I want to make improvements to it, if I have enough faith that I'm going to be able to continue to keep that building rented, or that I can sell it for what I've got into it. But that is correct. It's going to be about an 8-year payoff. Yes, ma'am.
Do they occupy the entire building?
Yes, ma'am.
What if we don't make the improvements? What happens?
Well, Workforce Solutions is not allowed to make these capital improvements. They have to rely upon us to make these, and I can't answer that. Perhaps Randy could answer that. If we said, you know what, we thought about this and we've decided we don't want to spend any money on that building, you can either take it as it is, or you can find a new place to move. And so how else can I answer that, Randy?
I can tell you we're committed to continue to provide service in this county and this community. There are certain things, as Chris mentioned, that would have to be done because by legislation we're required to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So there's certain things that we can't do and we won't do in state. We are happy with the facility. I can tell you the customers that come in our door every day comment about how happy they are with the location. As the judge said, because we're funded by the state, there's insurance funded on a federal level on an annual basis, we can't make any promises on the long term except to tell you that I know of nothing on the horizon that would jeopardize this being a lease agreement that we could both live with for many years to come.
Did I see another hand? Yes, sir. Mr. Clark? I'm glad you brought that up. And one of the items that is not on this list that needs to be taken care of, and we knew this when we bought the building, there are 3 AC units in that building. All three of them were pretty bad. One of them didn't work at all. The other two, I was warned, you need to replace these. That's right. Right now, we have one brand-new unit. The biggest unit there has been replaced. I believe it was a 5-ton unit. We still have 2 smaller units. I believe that the county should go ahead and replace those regardless of whether we enter into a long-term agreement with Workforce Solutions. So I have not included that on their list of remodel items. I feel like that's a county expense somewhere in the neighborhood of $9,000 that needs to be made to make that building right. Those 2 units are currently functioning, but I feel like right now is the time to do this replacement of those 2 units while we're doing this other remodel work. We've got a single water heater in there, and it seemed like it didn't look too old to me, but I don't really remember.
It's not, one of the things that's the first on the list is basically relocating the water heater. It's located right now where their computer equipment is, which is not a good combination of water and computers. So we're recommending that we actually downsize it to a little small under-counter hot water heater. It's a full 20-gallon right now, and all they need hot water for is a bathroom. They don't have a kitchen.
Could it be looked at for heat pumps in that order there? It's just they're pretty efficient on electricity.
These are all heat pumps. Anyone else, question or comment? I don't think we mentioned it, but what I would suggest is we enter into a 3-year initial lease term, that we would offer 3 3-year options, and the lease rate for each succeeding term would be repriced at the beginning of each option period based on the cumulative increase in the consumer price index over those prior 3 years, so that at least every 3 years we're readjusting based on the CPI. Commissioners, any questions, comments?
We spent 150 on the building, we spent 150 or 90 on this, we'd have $250,000 into this building.
That's about right.
Is that a $250,000 building?
Absolutely. All right. Chris has made several suggestions here that include a method for making these expenditures. So we're deciding several things. First of all, do you want to be a landlord with Workforce Solutions as your tenant, hopefully long-term? And if you want to do that, then we need to spend some money. And it looks like about $90,000 to $100,000. Are you willing to make that commitment, and are you willing to go along with the suggestions that Chris is making for how we're going to pay for that labor and materials, and then what kind of lease term would you like to do?
It looks to me like, Judge, if we're going to do anything to the building, we're going to have to do some work on it anyway. And so I'm going to make the motion that we go ahead and let Chris go ahead with his, do this project.
Okay.
With those stipulations that you just talked about with the lease terms on it.
Okay.
And I make that into a motion.
Okay. Got a motion by Commissioner Hockaday, and I'm going to kind of restate that just to make sure we're all together. We would enter into a 3-year lease. We would offer 3 3-year options that would adjust according to the consumer price index. We're going to have a budget of approximately $90,000, which could be adjusted upwards by Workforce Solutions if they need to spend a little bit more money to get what they need. We would turn over the project to Chris, who would arrange for bids to flow through James Webster's office. He will have someone who is the overseer of the project that would be minding that on a day-to-day basis. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Hockaday.
Would Workforce start paying the rent while this construction is going on, or?
Well, that's another thing we can discuss here. Right now, they're currently at $1,500. I would propose that we leave that the same until the project is complete, which is, again, another 4 to 6 weeks.
I don't think we want to raise the rent until we get through with the construction.
Good question. Well, I'm going to second it then. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. I'm just curious, while we're still in the discussion, what alterations might you want to make where you could feel comfortable with this?
I think maybe we should sell the building.
Okay.
And get rid of it. The idea of us being in the real estate business, the county, the taxpayers, workforce moves in 3 years. We've got this building. It's not a very good building. It's a 4-inch slab on the base of it. So, I mean, the foundation, I don't think it, and I don't think it's a good investment. This much money in it. We're talking about, like you said, we paid $150 to another $100, with $250,000. I don't know. I just don't like. I'm not comfortable with the county being in the real estate business.
I understand. All right, motion passes on a 3-1 vote. Chris, thank you for your help on this. We're going to move right on into the next agenda item here in just a second and talk about a couple of other buildings. Randy, thank you. We will begin moving forward on this as quickly as we can, and of course you'll be a part of the day-to-day decisions that we make on that process. Okay? And I appreciate Commissioner Riddle's comments there. However, I feel like this is a really good deal for the county. If I were looking at this as an individual investment on a piece of rent property, it would be a wonderful opportunity, I think. Although that's not really what the county's in business for, we did make the decision a month or so ago not to sell this building, but to go ahead and to maintain it for use by Workforce Solutions. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that is number 5, consider and possibly take action on recommendations from Chris Basham regarding construction projects at the Elections Administration Office and the Courthouse Annex. I'm going to step out for 60 seconds and print out my email that includes our update from the Loop project.
Thank you.
Ready when you are.
What I've got, I passed out as a package that kind of summarizes all of the moves. We've kind of talked about it several times. I found a way to just kind of put it in one place. So it kind of says who's moving where and how it's going to be phased. It was some recommendations for phasing. Take into account that something's got to happen before something else happens. The Riddle Street property was originally part of the move when we started looking at it. That's now out of the equation. It's still on the top up here, just so it's still part of the package, and basically recaps what we just talked about on the Riddle Street. The Ratcliffe building where Elections Administration is, the future use would move the vehicle registration and the tax office into there. Kind of got it planned as 2 phases of work right now, and I've got some drawings in the package too, but the 2 phases is basically Leonard's office and his staff's office is on the north half of the building. The south half of the building is where you register to vote when it's voting season, and some storage requirements. We would basically go renovate the south half of the building. Leonard would stay in operation where he's at right now without affecting him. We would stay on the other side of the hall, renovate it, and it would become Leonard's new office and the new administration and the new check-in. So that phase would basically renovate it for Leonard, and he would move into his new offices. When he moves out of his current office, then we would renovate that other half, the north half of the building, for the vehicle registration and tax office. And that layout is on page 3 of your package there. Second page of your package is kind of just a recap and a rough estimate on cost. We're at the point right now, we've got a layout, so we can start putting some quantities on what it's going to take. And I've got it broken out there, so you can kind of look at the details of it. And I realize this is the first time you're seeing this. But we're looking at in the neighborhood of about $185,000 to $200,000 to renovate everything in there. Several things that happened with the renovation is we opened the hallways up. Hallway is very, very narrow right now. It is 4 feet. It's actually not in compliance with the water fountain that pokes out into the hallway. So we're widening that hallway to 5 feet. So that it's wider and it's more usable by the public walking through there. It's pretty cramped right now. The layout on the third page kind of shows you what we talked about. I've met with Leonard, I've met with the tax office and Judy. We've made some changes since the last time you saw this, but we actually end up adding bigger spaces where the ladies work, and they're I want to call it a cubicle, but it's about a 6 by 5.5, and they're working on about a 6 by 4 right now. 6 by 5.5, 6 by 6 type area, but we end up with 9 of them instead of 8 because they've got some expansion coming in. The space in front of their counters would actually be available for, one of the things we talked about was during the election period, when the Democratic Party and the Republican Party split up and they do their counts and stuff, the front half of the tax office and the vehicle registration would be actually available by the way we're constructing it, so they'd actually be private offices for that week or 2 period when they actually needed that, or that night when they needed that space. So one of the goals of this thing was to make the space as flexible as it could be and still be secure where it needed to be secure. So the tax office vehicle registration is secure. By the way it's laid out, the front half of the tax and vehicle registration would be open as needed on those election nights. The break room is jointly shared, so that was a savings of space between having 2 different break rooms. We've expanded the women's toilet to make it twice as big as it was, because there'd be a lot more women working in the facility than there are now. Actually, by code, 1 seat is plenty, but it's easy enough to expand it, so we have expanded it so that it's got more utility there. We've proposed adding some canopies on the doors on it, just let people know where you're supposed to come in and stuff, and fixing the ramp actually that goes into where the voters check in on that south side would have to be modified, and putting a canopy over it also. So we highlight the entrances to the buildings. That's the only thing we're doing on the exterior of the building. We did have the asbestos survey done in here, and there is no asbestos except on the exterior of the building. So there won't have to be any need for any asbestos abatement in this particular facility. That's the Ratliff building. The South Side Square building, that's the former Guaranty Bank building, and then some retail shops on the west end. The goal is to turn it into a judicial facility. We're adding a new courtroom, pretty much equal to the same size as the existing courtroom. That'll give the 2 district judges plenty of time. They have the workload right now, but they're having to miss opportunities to have cases because there's not enough courtroom space. So this adds another courtroom and also keeps the jury selection room as a jury selection room. We'd originally looked at turning the jury selection room into another courtroom. It's not big enough. There's no jury room separate that you can put it in, so there just wasn't enough room to do it there. So we did do an asbestos survey that was paid for. Actually, on the 8th of January, they will start, and it'll take them 8 days. And so on the 8th of January, they will be taking out all the asbestos in the south side of the building, which is all that vacant space, mainly in the floor tile, a couple of the ceilings, and in some of the wall plaster. There's some asbestos. And the only exterior asbestos over there is under that canopy that's on the west side. The whole underside of that is asbestos, so that's going to come out. So we're going to probably pull that canopy out, is what our recommendation is at the same time. I have a feeling that what's under that canopy is the old storefronts that used to be there, and if that is the case, once we understand that, then our goal would be to restore the old storefront, looking more like the rest of the square. Part of this proposal here also takes the whole front side of the square and redoes it. We've already had the state come in here through the Main Street program, and the state architect has been here and he's given some recommendations as to how to redo that, so it kind of matches up with the rest of the square. The aggregate panels that would be over here in the bank building would be covered up. I broke up the south side square building into some rough costs again too. Everybody's been asking what's it going to cost, and so I've kind of put some rough prices on these. These could go up, these could go down. As an architect, I kind of know about what the range is, but the real pricing of something comes into what kind of quality do you want to put into it. You know, and one of the things that gets expensive is generally a courtroom, because it's usually expected to be a lot of wood finishes, and those get a little more expensive than doing chipboard and stuff. So the costs that you see here are based on a range of, having done this for many, many years, and kind of know in a price range what it is. And I probably have given you a price range rather than a price, but we've got the asbestos removal. After that's done, then there'll be some additional demolition that we would do on the south side, just to get in there and find out what we got. There's been stuff covered up and built over and built around for so many years. After they get the asbestos out, we'll come in and basically gut the building as far as what's all in there, so we can actually do what we want to do. Then there's a phase 2 would be the adult probation, and which would move from this building here, the courthouse over across the street, into the judicial, what we'll call the judicial center, I guess, for right now. Estimated it to be between $180,000 and $200,000 to do it, to put the walls in. The biggest cost there is going to put it in a bathroom. We got to put an ADA accessible bathroom. They do their drug testing in the bathrooms over there. There is plumbing over there for bathrooms, but none of it is sufficient, so that's all going to be redone. The saving grace is that floor over there is about 2 foot off of grade, so we've got room to run underneath and run the plumbing, so that'll help with the cost, keeping the cost down on that. The courtroom and the associated spaces being the jury room, the attorney's offices for counseling during the trial, those things would be phase 3 and would happen after the tax office and the vehicle registration moved over to the Riddle building. So I can lay this all out next time if y'all want to go with this. I'll lay it all out in a big schedule and kind of show how it all ties together. But there is a daisy chain of effects that goes on. Something has to happen first before something else can happen. And then the last phase would be the renovation for the DA's office, expanding some space in the next to his existing office, and adding another district judge's office and an attorney's office on the front side of that building next to the courtroom, the existing courtroom. And then you've got a layout that you've seen before. This is the one that seems to work the best, that allows the flow with option A. Puts adult probation in the back corner, the jury room, attorney administration, law library, and courtroom would actually go where vehicle registration and the tax office is, and part of the, it would use part of the new building. The lease space is kind of left because it's about 1,000 square feet, and the concept here that I'm proposing is that it would be leased out to be a coffee shop. It would be a downtown coffee shop on the corner. And because you're gonna have all these offices and all these people over here, there's no real place to go to grab a cup of coffee. Could be that. One of the things that I would recommend, and we've kind of chatted about, is that maybe it's run by the veterans, and it's somehow tied to the veterans in the county. And I just think it would be a good focal point for the downtown square, place to get coffee when you're having to deal with the court. And it's too small to use for anything else, being only about 1,000 square feet. And the reason I say it's too small, it's a separate building. And that's one of the things we found when we got into there, is a separate building. And there's actually 2 walls between that lease space and the adjacent next to it. It's actually a separate building. So can we break through it? Yes. Then we've got roofing columns to do for 2 different buildings. So the easiest, least expensive way is to keep it separate and use it for another building. And I personally like the idea of the coffee shop on the corner.
Yeah,
They
but
can
the
do-
Starbucks only lasts for 4 months, so why do you think this should?
Do what now?
The Starbucks only lasts for 4 months, why do you think the coffee?
Starbucks and this would be a different concept. Starbucks was, in my opinion, Starbucks was put in the wrong place. Should have been on the interstate. That's my,
Does that building have a restroom?
which one? The-
At least space?
Yes, it does.
Starbucks.
It does. And it wouldn't call it Starbucks, I wouldn't call it Starbucks. It does have a small restroom in there.
How big is the Ratliff building square footage?
I want to say it's 40, it's about 5,000 square feet, 4,800, 5,000 square feet.
And this is only 1,000 left.
And the space behind it, because we've talked about this before, you see the lease space and you see the building that's directly behind it. It's actually 2 foot lower than the floor than the lease space is. The grade drops down. There's actually 4 buildings that are up here on the corner. And they're all different floor levels. Which is another reason why the parceling out for 1,000 square feet is something separate.
Remind me, why do we want to move adult probation? Because it's a district job?
Why do we want to move them?
Yeah, out of here. What are we going to do with this space?
Well, I think there's several reasons, and I don't know the answer to that. The idea is to get all high security or security needy activity into one building where we can control access. And we have several entrances right now over at the annex, and more than likely we would end up, after a security study, with one main entrance there off of right here on the north side of that building. The general public could not enter that building at any other point, and ultimately you would probably have an armed guard at that location. But at least you'd have everybody only coming in through that front door, and any other entrances would be employee access only. Our probation department deals with felony criminals, misdemeanor criminals. They have asked to be in an area that is not as disjointed as they currently are. Right now, they're in several different offices. They don't have a private restroom to take care of their business. This would be something that they would like to do. And again, it gets most of all the activity that's going on in this annex building would not be needed by the general public. Unless you have business with the court system, you don't need to go in this building, for the most part. Now, if you need a passport or an occasional use of the district clerk's office, you might still need to go in there. But we've pulled out of here paying your taxes and registering your vehicles in a different building. So this all started with a security idea. That was the main objective, and this is what we ended up with. That will leave us some additional space over here in the main courthouse when adult probation moves out. And how we reconfigure this building when we're done and move them out, I'm not quite sure. Chris, what do we need to vote on tonight, in your opinion? What I see is, we've dropped a lot on you tonight. We've already got the asbestos removal scheduled here for the first part of the year. And I think that the logical first step would be either or both approving proceeding with the demolition of the vacant annex space and proceeding with the rework of the Ratliff building.
I got a question. Where's in the annex, where's the storage, when you talk about the election office, where is it located?
The annex, when you're saying the annex, what are you talking about? The building across
Yeah, we had talked about some storage for some of Leonard's stuff. We were going to try to put both those departments in that Ratliff building was going to need some storage.
We're looking at these rooms in the back. back in here, we're talking about here.
How much square footage?
There's like 500-600 square foot back here. That's what we're talking about. And then we also have that could be available.
Really, that's what it looked like on the plan. I don't see any storage space.
lot of stuff.
At the elections office.
Right, there's storage on the, let me go back to it. The voting space, that you see that we got the 15, the 1 through 15, that is only used during elections. So that's actually storage space except for when you have the election. So that was one of the spaces, and then the other was at the, other across the street at the annex.
If I store some stuff in there, I got elections every 3 months. What am I gonna do with that stuff?
You have elections every month, is that what you're saying? Every 3 months?
Well, like coming up this year, we're gonna have early voting in February, election in March, and we're gonna have elections again in May. So if I store stuff down, I'm gonna be moving it around every.
I mean, we've had this discussion before, and there's plenty of room in the annex to store everything you got over there. Right now, there's a lot of underutilized space where you are right now. I mean, I can bring the pictures over and show everything, and you can be consolidated down to half of what you got just by consolidating it. So we've matched that amount of space, and there's plenty of space to store in the annex. And what we haven't talked about is where do you want to store it? What do you want to store in the annex versus what do you want to store where you are?
We're not talking about just storing. I got those metal boxes.
Right.
I can store stuff in 22 months. Then I got 22 pieces of auto marks. I got 22,
Yes, sir.
I got 66 pieces of equipment, in other words. But it can't be just stored. I got to spread it out to set it up for elections. I got to have room to spread it out. When the maintenance man comes every other year, to go through that equipment and clean it, wherever it's stored, it's got to be room for them to spread it out and go through and calibrate and set that equipment up. When I'm just talking about just storing it somewhere, just to stack it up, we got to have room to.
The room that you've got them in right now is where you see Judy Cook's office, private storage and public storage. That is the space that you've got that stuff in right now. And that space is,
That's like Conway's got. Yeah, some of it there, but he's also got some of it in the other, where you've got the new break room and elections administrative office, so that's what.
yeah, there's not much in there. There's not much in there really. All of that stuff can be stored in the room that's available in the annex. And the discussion that we had in the past was, what are the issues associated with where it's stored, not how much it's being stored? We've got plenty of room. It's just a matter of the location. And so I guess the discussion continues of whether it needs to be stored at the election building or if it's stored across the street in the annex. There's room to do it in the annex. Plenty of square footage. It's just a matter of convenience about what do you want in which place and why. I mean, I agree with you. We went through the discussions about them working on it and having the space. Right now, they work on it in the existing space. And the new space is exactly the same size for that particular function, so it shouldn't be any different. You just wouldn't be working in your building, you'd be working in the annex.
Where I got it stored at now, you know, it's on the side where the elections office is now. On the very end, we got the auto marks.
Right.
And the precinct counter stored. But on the other side that you're gonna renovate, we already got the 22 poll booths and some equipment, blue cans and stuff stored over there.
Right.
It's not room for them on the side that I am now.
What I'm hearing you say is that we need to take into account how, when we go to renovating, where do we put that stuff? We got plenty of room to do it. We're just gonna have to show everybody where it goes while we're doing the renovation. There's plenty of room to store it, and then it's just a matter of when we move it and where we move it. So, what I need to do probably, just so it's very clear, and I'm willing to do that, is I can actually come in and show you in the annex. I'll go later on the next time I do this drawing, I'll just put it on that drawing, your storage, so it's noted on there, so it's very clear as to where it is.
It does also need to be secure, you don't want
Right.
people messing with the voting machine.
That's correct. That is correct.
Part of it.
Essentially, it's that area where the existing current law library is, back there at the back of the existing break room.
Right.
However we configure that. All right, any other questions?
So where we were when we were talking was, I guess I would like to, we've bounced around several alternatives over the last, 5 or 6 months. If this alternative conceptually looks, I mean, there's still some detail to be worked out and be presented, but if this is the basic concept for the moves, then I can spend my time getting into the details about exactly where everything goes. We've got 5 different options. This is the one that when we last met was the closest to what everybody was looking for. So I would say that would be the first decision, is if we can go with this as a starting point, then I can work out the details and all the incremental stuff that has to happen. I mean, we got to that point with the elections administration right now, so we're not just dealing with a block of space. We're looking at actually putting furniture in so we can see where everybody sits. That's where I need to go with the south side of the building, with the annex.
Well, I would make that motion
Okay.
to get it definite, that's it.
To approve conceptually what he's talking about
Yeah.
doing with these 2 buildings?
Right.
Okay.
That's it. I mean,
All right.
and so he could know.
What would be the first thing that you would do if you were turned loose tonight? Would you start, what would you do at the annex? What would you do at the Ratliff building? Would you try to work on them simultaneously or work on one before you touch the other?
We've already got the asbestos survey, the asbestos removal coming in. I would immediately follow that up with the demolition, just so we can know any surprises before we start getting in there. So that's the reason we were proposing doing the demolition, so we can get in there, we can see what we can't see by doing the demolition. Could you actually start the Ratliff building at the same time? Yes, you could, but given the elections that are coming up, we may want to put some thought on not touching anything over there until after the election. That might be better for everybody concerned instead of doing that. We've still got plenty to work on in the south side, the annex.
I thought we had decided to wait till after the election to start there. I thought that was previously discussed.
It might have been.
I think we did. We
Okay,
decided-
well, I agree 100% with that. So I would not do anything over there until after the election.
Okay, good.
We gotta have somewhere to put equipment before you start renovating or whatever.
Exactly.
It's not gonna be good for equipment and stuff, and it's gotta be climate control.
I agree.
May I just
You may.
point out that the elections will go on all year. As much as we're going to have a March election, we will always, and we will also have a May runoff, and then into November. It may really kind of mess up your schedules, is what I'm saying.
Well, we'll make a commitment that we're not going to make elections difficult. We'll figure out somehow, some way to schedule this work where it does not become a burden on the election process. Nigel?
Basic question. I mean, glad all this up, you're talking somewhere around $750,000. At some point, are you guys actually going to vote to spend that kind of money and tell us how you intend to pay for it?
We'll need, yes, we'll need to.
Building it through with bridges and road?
Yes, we'll need to vote on that before we spend that kind of money.
What, we can't break this down, one project at a time? I mean, you can't do it, so we spend this much money and vote on that, and then wait, this big deal is scary.
I've kind of started to break it out right now. I mean, the Ratliff building is a project.
Right.
The adult probation is a project and actually can be worked on that way. The new courtrooms is a project and can be worked on that way. And then the DA's office and the renovations in the existing courtroom area could be a 4th project. But that's why I'm trying to start estimating. And what I've got here are rough estimates, Sal, because I won't know until I start laying it out exactly how many walls and how many spaces are going to be. I mean, I know all that stuff, but the layout affects the price.
The only person that'll be in the way is the tax assessor office,
Right.
and that until you finish the Ratliff building. So I don't know. I don't know how you're going to lay it.
So we could do the adult probation, actually, we could do everything to the right that's in the adult probation, the jury room, law library, attorney admin. That whole area there can all be done separately from anything happening with the Rapids building.
But we have an election in March 16th or whatever, or early voting 1st of March. There's got to be a way we can work around that. They build courthouses and work around during construction.
I think one of the big things that Leonard, and I probably so can verify this, that all that stuff, the election boxes, all that has to be secured. Is that correct?
Right.
Locked, and you and people that you put in charge of that, it has to be secured. Nobody else can have keys to it or anything like that. Okay.
Yeah, and the primary and the runoff are the only times this year that the two parties need spaces. After the runoff, we won't need separate spaces for a year and a half.
Good point.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that we looked at designing the tax office and the vehicle registration so that space in the front, the space where they could be used by both parties, because it was only used very seldom. And that was,
Well, I'm just saying, in scheduling, that probably only exists through May.
so is what I'm hearing then that a better time to start anything on the Rapids building would be in June?
Unless you figure out another way of accommodating that issue. But all next year, we won't have that problem.
Okay. And I think if you got started in June, you could be done by November. So you'd be back up and running, by the end
In
of
November, we don't need spaces. It's a general election, we don't need civic spaces.
Already voting will start middle of October.
Right.
Well, we're missing a commissioner tonight for one thing. I don't want to make too big of a decision without him. How would you like to state your motion?
I'd like to, we're not going to make any more changes. I'd like to have a motion that we're going to do it like this.
We're going to approve this plan
This plan,
conceptually.
and then we're going to do it. And then priorities, I'd like to table it until we can work out like the elections. And then we do the same thing there, have a positive, firm schedule. What's first, what's next, what's third, what's fourth. But I think we should start off with, this is the plan, and start with that.
Okay.
Maybe the demolition, if that's what we need to do to figure out how to work, but I don't want to just keep churning this thing around. I think it's
Okay.
counterproductive.
So your motion would be to approve Chris's general conceptual plan here for use of the space at the Ratliff Building and the annex, to give him a further ability to put some scheduling together and some numbers for us that we could approve at a later point. And could we include in that going ahead and beginning the demolition in the annex? Or you want to hold off on that?
No, we've already got the asbestos started, and I think the
That's all.
demolition would have to know what.
Well, the asbestos removal has been approved, but what he would really like to do is to be able to tear out the rest of that building so that he can have a better understanding of the structure of what's in there to help him with getting some, tighter costs. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Answer your question.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Riddle.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Hockaday. All those in favor of the motion, which again is to approve conceptually the use of these two buildings and to approve the demolition of the empty annex space after the completion of the asbestos removal. Question, comment?
Thank
Sure.
you. Have you had an opportunity to visit with the probation and see if this is going to meet their needs?
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
And it's
That's all.
actually, it's bigger than It's bigger than what they were originally looking at. It's just because they're filling up the space that they had. So it's a good 500-600 square foot bigger than what they actually needed, so.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and there are none. Chris, thank you very much. Asbestos begins, what, first week, 8th of January? All right, very good. Item number 6, consider and possibly approve the purchase and installation of a flat-screen TV for Courtroom B in the annex to be paid out of the Indigent Defense Fund. This is a request from the judges over there to give them the ability to better utilize that Courtroom B, which is used right now primarily for selection of jury panels, and they would really benefit from having a big screen TV in there where they could plug a computer in to make presentations to the jury pool. We are utilizing this in the Justice Center for County Court, and it works well there, and the judges have requested that we do this. Ken Wilson, who works for the judges, has researched this, and yes, we can pay for this out of the Indigent Defense Fund. We have a bid of approximately, I think it's about $1,800 to get this done, the installation, running the wiring, purchasing the TV, the necessary mount for that, $1,794. Electrician, subcontract fee, a full mount for the TV, a long HDMI cable, labor, a 55-inch TV, a Blu-ray DVD player, freight and hardware, $1,794.
Make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Fields,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hockaday. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and there are none. Thank you. Item number 7, discuss and possibly take action on driver's license qualifications for county employees. I simply added this here because I wanted to clarify to the audience as well as to everyone here on the court. I misunderstood something about the driver's license requirements. I thought when we talked 2 weeks ago that any county employee that went up there and elected to spend the $11 to get an exemption could automatically drive one of our vehicles that required a CDL, and that is not correct. This $11 exemption is only going to be utilized by those that currently hold a CDL license. It will not give CDL privileges to someone like me who does not possess a CDL license. So I wanted to make that point of clarification. I also wanted to be sure that the court was okay with the fact that we are looking for a cheaper alternative for some of these employees that carry the CDL license to avoid taking a physical, and because of this exemption, they can maintain their CDL privileges to drive our vehicles and not have a physical. And also, I wanted to be sure that each commissioner is not letting unlicensed drivers drive inappropriate vehicles. In other words, we want to be sure that whatever vehicle it is that they are driving, that they are appropriately licensed, whether it requires nothing more than a Class C license or whether it requires a CDL. Let's not be in a position where we're asking Class C license carriers that really shouldn't be driving our biggest vehicles to drive those. So I'm really not looking for a vote on this unless there's any changes that you want to make based upon what I've told you tonight.
My guys have already they've already completed theirs. I think they had it done for a week or
Okay.
2 or 3.
Only 2 of my drivers have CDLs. The other 2 have to get them, and we should, well, my older employees say that was once required, but somehow it slipped. And Philip told me only 2 of his have CDL. How about yours, Mike? You have CDLs for all of yours, or you have all of yours,
I
right?
got all of mine.
Yeah.
Mine's got them, all of mine.
Right, and that's what someone else told me that. Well, mine, I've got to get 2 of them to get a CDL, and my suggestion is my 2 that have a CDL, they don't want that P on theirs. They want to be able to drive a truck for Big Techs on Saturday if they want to. If you get a CDL, well, Class B for our dump trucks, we need a CDL. We're required to. But if the employee wants a CDL, I think we should pay for his physical to work for us, because he don't want that P restriction on his license, and I don't blame him. They're his. It's like a lawyer's license. They belong to him, but we require him to work here, and that restriction, the $11 restriction, is for a physical. It's an affidavit saying that I don't have any diabetes, I'm not blind, I can see, and I can pass, and so they pay $11, and we've agreed to pay that $11, which is good, but they can only drive a government vehicle. They can't drive a vehicle for anybody else or anything. So at that point, we'll pay for that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. If mine wants to drive somewhere else
Right.
on the weekends or wherever, I'm gonna expect them to pay for those licenses.
Right.
I think the county ought to have to pay for that.
But I think we should pay for the physical, because they have to have a physical work for the city, or that restriction, that P wrote on them. That's not quite fair that we do that for everybody else and not them, so the physicals are going to cost like, I don't know what they cost, probably around $50, I'm saying. But I suggest those guys that want to get their own license, that we pay for their physical. I don't know whether we would vote on it or not, but that's
I don't have a problem with that. That's fine with me.
I think.
Okay, so you're proposing that an employee that does not have a CDL license, if we want him to get a CDL license, even if it equips him to work off-duty for somebody else, you would like to approve the county paying for a physical to enable them to get that CDL? Okay. You want to put that in the form?
The alternative is that he has to sign an affidavit that he's physically able to operate the government vehicle. And if he signs that, they put a restriction on his license, it's a P, that he can only drive government vehicles. So, and he don't want it on there, and I don't blame him. But some of them do, they're satisfied. Like me, I got a P on mine. I'm satisfied. I'm not going to drive for Big Techs on the weekend. But for instance, that's the choice, is that we should give the employee, I think.
You know, the only problem with that, if they're driving somewhere else, they have an accident, then they're on our health insurance during all that time. And I don't know that all that's really.
I hadn't thought about that.
I got mixed emotions. I'm not going to let my guys I'm not going to okay them to drive on the weekend somewhere else unless they do something different than what they're doing.
Well, not either. I mean, but that's a good point.
I'll let you figure out how you're going to curtail that. As far as any action we want to take tonight that's different from what we've already done, which is approve the $11 fee for the exemption, is there anything that we want to do
I think
in addition?
I think we should require a CDL for the drivers, because I want all of mine to drive that dump truck, and that's over 26,001 pound. They're supposed to have a CDL. And as you pointed out, that would give a good lawyer or something to work on. We had a person operating without a qualification. So I think we should give them a period of time, 6 weeks, you got to have a CDL.
Okay.
I would like to make that recommendation or motion.
Okay, your motion.
What are you recommending now?
The people that don't have a CDL, like I have two guys, Philip says he has two, that they have to get a CDL because they drive dump trucks. I want them to be able to drive the bigger trucks.
You mean you let them drive them without their license?
I didn't know it. They didn't have them until this come up.
The first thing I did with mine when I hired somebody,
Well, either we need to get them licensed, or we don't need to let them drive our vehicle.
If they're going to drive the
Yeah,
county
that's
trucks,
right.
to be
And
covered with our insurance.
that probably should be left up to the commissioners. And I agree with him. And I should do the same thing. And
Okay.
Philip, I'll get that done.
So the motion would be that we require any employee that's going to drive a vehicle that requires the appropriate license must have that appropriate license.
I think that's already been passed through the court back when we had to do this way back.
That's
Well,
that's what
then
my...
we're discussing it so that we be sure that we're all abiding by that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's right. My older guys tell me the same thing, that it wasn't required back in the 90s or somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to second that motion, and again, that motion is that we require all of our employees to be appropriately licensed to drive the vehicles that we have. And we'll give them until
Not all of our employees, but just our maintenance employees.
anybody that's required to drive a CDL required vehicle. And you'll give them till, say, end of January? Does that be reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay, by the end of January. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item number 8, consider and possibly approve reimbursing the state for unused revolving loan funds currently held by the county in accordance with state requirement. We've had this discussion a couple of times before. We've gotten more communication with the state, and they are reminding us that it is now time to give them back some of the money that we had previously held for making loans under our revolving loan fund. And Christy, will you tell us, I'm going to ask you several things, what's the total dollar amount we are holding? How much of that is interest that belongs to us? How much of that is principal that belongs potentially to the state?
I don't have it broken down like that.
Okay.
I just have, we've got like 700 and something thousand.
And I think 650,000 is non-interest, or it's principal.
We've got $727,064.60. We can keep $238,000, so we'll need to send back that difference.
Well, we get to keep the interest. The interest is ours. Any interest that's been earned is ours. And I think she made that clear, that we only had to return,
Well, on the email, it said it should be less than the 33 compliance rule. I thought when we discussed it the other night that we had to send everything above the 238,000.
well, maybe that 238,000 includes the interest. And if it does, that's fine. I didn't know if that 238 included that interest that we had earned on it or not.
20,727 is including interest in that figure.
Okay, then you're right. And that figure one more time is what?
The balance in there is $727,064.60. We would have to send back everything but $238,000.
So about $500,000. Okay. We've got one loan that I'm trying to get to come to fruition. It probably will not occur until the first quarter of next year, and they're not going to need anything near that $238,000. If they need $100,000, we'll be lucky. But because of the lower interest rate environment over the last few years, this revolving loan fund has just not been very attractive. There's a lot of requirements that you must meet in order to qualify for those funds, such as job creation and revealing your personal financial information. So I am going to ask that we approve the return of the monies that the state has asked for and leave us with about $230,000 or whatever that figure was that we can continue to utilize to try to loan out to any businesses that would like to apply for that.
So moved.
Second by Commissioner Hockaday. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Ma'am.
The total amount that we would send back would be $488,948.13.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 10, item number 9, consider and possibly approve the preparation of an application for the 2014 and 15 STEP grant for DWI enforcement. It's only been less than 2 months since we approved this for the current year. I think that the state is a little bit ahead, but nonetheless, Lieutenant McDowell has asked that we go ahead and allow him to begin the grant application process well in advance. and go ahead and get that going now, since they have approved the application process, or at least the receipt of those applications. And so once again, we're simply wanting to give permission to Lieutenant McDowell to go ahead and apply for this STEP grant. And again, this is Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, and where they put out extra muscle at certain times of the year, like right now, to try to curtail DWI violations. So if you'll give me permission to go ahead and allow Lieutenant McDowell to get that started.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Riddle.
Second.
And I think I heard Commissioner Fields second that first. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, item number 10. Please forgive me. I put this on there and then realized that we are right in the middle of a 2-year contract with Cabro Technologies. This is a 2-year contract that we approved last year, not an annual contract, so I failed to note the dates. And so even though we had some discussion about this, there is no need to vote on renewal of a contract with Cabro Technologies. We'll have this discussion a year from now. But just as an update, I polled the IT committee and asked them to give me their comments on whether or not we should continue, and everybody, at least so far, has given me a thumbs up that they like working with Cabro. I did not get anyone making any comments to me as to why they wanted to consider not approving that contract. I feel like we've got a very good relationship with Cabro. I feel like we get a good service. We'll discuss the cost of that service a year from now. I'm going to jump back to our report on pass-through projects. Did she? I think she just got the wrong date on there. Okay, we have extra copies of this available if anybody would like. Lou, did I give you a copy there? Disregard that error right there. I'll run through this briefly and try to hit just the high points. Contract administration is the subject. All subcontractors on the 271 project insurances are up to date. We have several subcontractors working. The project is about 94% complete in terms of money paid to Williams Brothers. On FM 2348, the project is complete. Their disadvantaged business enterprise goal was met. That road is open. There are no longer any road closed signs up over there, and it's a wonderful road. On FM 4000, all subs insurance are up to date. We've got James Construction Group, Southwest Environmental, and a few others that are currently working on that project. We're about 28% complete on that project in terms of how much we've paid to James Construction. Construction-related topics on US 271, Williams Brothers continues working on all aspects of the project. Below are bullet items describing work being performed, and that would be at wetland number 2, at FM 899, the UPRR Railroad. We still do not have any firm words to give you at this point on our railroad bridge problem there out by Preferts. They're still working on this daily, trying to figure out exactly what's going to be done and who's going to be paying for it, but they told me they were not ready to make that presentation yet. FM 127, substructures are complete and the concrete bridge beams are in place. The bridge decks for both the northbound frontage road and the southbound frontage road have been poured. Over FM 1000, substructures are complete and the concrete bridge beams are in place and the deck bridge has been poured. At County Road 2040 bridge, the substructures are complete and the concrete beams are in place. Spans number 7 and 8 have been poured at that location. Southwest 48 or County Road 4530, the substructures are complete and the concrete bridge beams are in place and the bridge deck has been poured. Lime cement stabilized base and bond breaker has been placed and completed 100% throughout the project. The contractor has begun pouring concrete barriers for the main lanes and bridges, and they're about 50% completed. The entire storm sewer is complete in Phase 1 and Phase 2. The main lane concrete paving is 100% complete, other than 2 small areas on either side of the County Road 2040 overpass. Williams Brothers Dirt Crew is placing embankment for all driveway locations. Let's see, traffic control. The traffic on US 271 at the north end of the project is still shifted onto the new concrete paving, allowing for construction of Phase 2. All the traffic from County Road 2040 to the south end of the project is still on the new NBFR, I'm not even sure, northbound frontage road. It's still on the northbound frontage road. Contractors working on completing the north end of the project to open up the north and southbound frontage roads from US 30 to State Highway 49. That's out there in the El Chico area. All striping was refreshed for the Christmas and New Year holidays. Barricades and striping are in good shape. Related to our railroad bridge problem, Pate has conducted several meetings with the design engineer, the bridge engineer, and the contractor to discuss the most cost-effective fix of the bridge elevation issue. The engineers have presented a design plan, which the contractor is continuing to price, and from which they will prepare a repair schedule. Pate anticipates meeting with the court during the first 2 weeks of January prior to submitting the repaid change order to TxDOT and the Highway Administration for approval in advance of formally presenting to the court for approval in January. FM 1000/4000, the newest portion of the 3-part loop. 383 days allowed, 174 days have been charged as of December 20th. James Construction Group has started construction, and the contractors completed the right-of-way clearing. They continue to work on their dirt operations. They've started placing fly and lime ash subgrade. The pipe crew is placing culverts from US 271 loop project to FM 1735. They're placing driveway culverts throughout the project. The bridge crew drill shafts are completed at Hart Creek, and drill shafts and retaining walls for the railroad are scheduled to begin after the first of the year. Columns have been poured from Bents number 15 through 11, and caps on those bridges have been poured for Bents 15, 14, and 13. Southwest Environmental has been placing rock filter dams and silt fences for the protection of the creeks and wetlands. The permanent closing of Tennyson Road has taken place, of course, and traffic's no longer able to travel the full length of Tennyson Road, or at least they're not supposed to be. Holiday time charges. Due to the Christmas holidays, work will cease on the projects as follows. On US 271, they will cease operations from the 24th through the 26th. They'll be back at work on Friday the 27th. For New Year's, work will cease only on January 1. On FM 1000, the contractor will cease operations from the 24th through the 25th. They'll be back at work on the 26th. For New Year's, they will cease operations on December 31 and January 1, and they'll be back at work on January 2nd. Any questions or comments about loop-related matters? Yes, Nigel?
Why do you have to read the contracts that you have with Pate? And as you get into looking at the sorting out this railroad bridge, just bear in mind that they were supposed to have a $5 million insurance policy to cover professional issues such as design issues like that.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 11, consider and possibly approve travel and seminars for county employees and elected officials.
You just had one and you already signed it. I think it's, you were going.
Yes, this is my request to attend the annual Commissioners Court and Judges Conference down in College Station That'll be the 4th, 5th, and 6th of February. That registration costs $195. They will provide some of the meals, so I'm asking for a maximum meal reimbursement of $80, and it may be less than that depending upon how many meals that they provide. The hotel will cost me for 2 nights $173.60 for the 2 nights. I'll travel in my own vehicle, a total of about 450 miles, and that is only mandatory to meet educational hour requirements. It is not a mandatory material. So that is the only one that I have, and I know the commissioners will have these for the same conference coming up here in the next few weeks.
Okay.
If I can get your approval on that one, please. Motion by Commissioner Fields,
I second it.
second by Commissioner Riddle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item 12, approve oral and written reports of county officials. Christie, thank you for filling in for Carl, who has gotten away early for holidays. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the written reports.
Right, motion by Commissioner Hockaday for approval. Second by Commissioner Fields. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item number 13, consider and possibly approve the treasurer's report.
Make a motion to approve the treasury.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hockaday for approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Riddle. All in favor, say aye. Item 14, approve budget amendments, and we have none. Sign pay orders and approve payments, number 15.
Motion to pay our bills.
Motion by Commissioner Hockaday to approve and pay the bills. I'll make a second on that. All in favor, say aye. All right, I'm going to jump quickly to item number 17. Our attorney from Tyler unfortunately had to cancel, and so we will not be having our executive session there as stated in item 17. Hopefully, we'll take care of that at the next meeting. So I am ready for closing comments. I'll start on Commissioner Hockaday's end.
I don't have any, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fields?
Just everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Commissioner Riddle? And I don't have anything either. Thank you for your patience tonight. Just a couple of days away, late, cold, December 23rd. drive home safely. If you're traveling, please be careful, and everybody have a Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming.
Merry Christmas.
All those in favor of, or excuse me, let me get a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Fields, second by Commissioner Hockaday. All in favor, say aye. Thank you.